I found out my wife was planning to leave me with nothing, and if I had signed the papers she pushed in front of me that night, she probably would have. Instead, 6 months later, I stood in a courtroom and watched the judge give me everything she thought she had stolen. For most of our marriage, I thought I was one of the lucky ones. My wife, Lauren, was smart, polished, and knew exactly how to make people trust her. She worked in real estate, always looked put together, always knew what to say, and could charm a room in less than 5 minutes. I worked longer hours than I should have, mostly because I wanted us to have a comfortable life. We had a beautiful house, decent savings, 2 cars, and what I thought was a stable marriage. From the outside, we looked solid. But somewhere around our 9th year together, things changed. At first it was subtle. She became protective of her phone. She started taking late client calls from the back patio. She suddenly had girls' nights with friends she used to complain about. She stopped asking how my day was, stopped touching me when she passed me in the kitchen, stopped looking at me like I was her husband and started looking at me like I was just someone who happened to live in the same house. I noticed all of it. I just didn't want to say it out loud. Because once you say it, it becomes real. I kept telling myself it was stress. That maybe I was working too much. That maybe we were just in a rough patch. People tell themselves amazing lies when the truth is standing right in front of them. Then one Friday night, she told me she had to fly out for a weekend real estate conference in Miami. She had already packed. She had the hotel confirmation pulled up on her laptop. She even kissed me on the cheek before leaving for the airport. Everything about it looked normal. Except one thing. About an hour after she left, I got a fraud alert from our shared credit card. It wasn't from Miami. It was from a luxury hotel downtown. In our city. At first I actually laughed, because I assumed it was a mistake. I called the bank, confirmed the charge, and just sat there staring at the wall while the woman on the phone repeated the hotel name to me twice. I remember how quiet the house felt in that moment. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just grabbed my keys and drove. Part of me hoped there would be some innocent explanation. Maybe she had booked something for a client. Maybe it was a weird system error. Maybe I was about to feel stupid for overreacting. That hope lasted until I saw her car in the hotel garage. I parked 3 rows over and sat there gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. I knew that car. I knew the jacket hanging in the back seat. I knew the little crack in the taillight from when she backed into our mailbox 2 years earlier. She was there. I went inside and told the front desk I was trying to surprise my wife. I even smiled when I said it. The guy looked uncomfortable, probably because he knew exactly what kind of surprise this was. He wouldn't give me a room number, but he gave me enough. He told me, carefully, that if I wanted to wait in the lobby, guests usually came down around 8 for dinner reservations. So I waited. And at 7:43, I saw my wife step out of the elevator wearing a dress I had bought her for our anniversary. She wasn't alone. The man next to her had one hand on the small of her back like he had every right to touch her. She was laughing. Not fake laughing. Not polite laughing. Real laughing. The kind I hadn't heard from her in months. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and twisted. I didn't confront them there. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But something in me shut off instead. Maybe instinct. Maybe survival. I pulled out my phone and recorded them walking through the lobby together, his hand still on her back, her leaning into him like they belonged to each other. Then I followed them from a distance into the hotel restaurant and got more. Them sitting side by side instead of across from each other. Him kissing her temple. Her touching his leg under the table. Every second of it burned into my brain. I should have left after that. Instead, I stayed long enough to see her kiss him full on the mouth near the elevator when they headed back upstairs. That was the moment something changed in me. The sadness was still there, but it made room for clarity. I went back to my car, sat in the dark, and started thinking about every weird thing from the past year. Her sudden push to restructure our finances. The way she kept insisting my name didn't need to be on one of the investment accounts because it was temporary. The post-nuptial agreement she'd brought up twice, saying it was just a smart way to protect both of us. The fact she kept asking detailed questions about my business assets like she was studying for an exam. This wasn't just cheating. This was preparation. And once that thought entered my head, I couldn't ignore it. I drove home, opened my laptop, and started going through everything. Bank statements. Tax returns. Property documents. Email confirmations. Shared account activity. At 2:14 in the morning, I found the first thing that made my stomach drop even lower than it already had. A transfer. Then another. Then another. Small enough not to trigger alarm. Regular enough to look harmless. She had been moving money for months. By sunrise, I knew two things for certain. My wife was having an affair. And she wasn't planning to leave quietly. She was planning to leave with as much as she could carry and let me figure out the wreckage afterward. What she didn't know yet was that I had seen everything. And by Monday morning, I was sitting in the office of the best divorce attorney in the city with a folder full of statements, timestamps, and hotel footage. That was the day I stopped being a husband trying to save his marriage. And became a man getting ready to destroy the lies she built on top of it. Monday morning, I walked into a law office carrying a folder that felt heavier than it should have. Inside were bank statements, screenshots, hotel timestamps, and the video I recorded of my wife kissing another man in a hotel lobby while she was supposedly at a conference in Miami. The attorney I hired was a quiet guy named Daniel. Mid-50s, calm voice, the kind of person who listens more than he talks. He didn't react when I told him the story. He didn't look surprised either. That alone made me uneasy. When I finished explaining everything, he leaned back in his chair and asked me one question. Do you want revenge, or do you want protection? At first I said revenge. He shook his head immediately. Revenge is emotional. Protection wins court cases. Then he opened the folder and started going through the documents one by one. Within 10 minutes he stopped and tapped one of the bank statements with his pen. Did you approve this account? I looked down at the page. It was an investment account I vaguely remembered Lauren mentioning months earlier. At the time she said it was something temporary connected to a property deal she was working on. I had trusted her. No, I said slowly. She said it was just something she needed for work. Daniel nodded like he had expected that answer. Well, according to this, over the last 8 months she has transferred just over $80,000 into it. I felt my stomach twist. From our joint account? Yes. He turned the screen of his computer toward me. And here's the interesting part. The account wasn't just in her name. It was in her name and someone else's. The same man from the hotel. My chest went cold when I saw it. They weren't just sleeping together. They were planning something. Daniel sat forward slightly. This changes things, he said. I asked him what he meant. He explained it slowly, like he didn't want me to misunderstand. In our state, cheating by itself doesn't usually change much during divorce. Courts don't punish people for being unfaithful. But financial deception? That was different. If one spouse secretly moved marital money, hid assets, or tried to transfer funds before divorce proceedings, judges didn't look kindly on that. Especially when there was proof. Daniel looked back at the folder. You have evidence of the affair. You have evidence of hidden funds. And if we move quickly, we can stop her before she moves the rest. For the first time since the hotel, I felt something other than anger. Control. He told me not to confront her. Not yet. Instead, we filed several things that same day. A request to freeze certain financial accounts. A notice preventing the sale of shared property. And the beginning of divorce proceedings. Lauren had no idea it was happening. For the next 3 weeks, I lived in the same house with her while the legal machine quietly started moving. She came home from her Miami trip Sunday night acting completely normal. She kissed my cheek, asked how my weekend was, and even complained about airline delays like she actually expected me to believe the story. I played along. I asked about the conference. She told me about fake seminars and fake networking dinners. Listening to her lies so easily felt surreal. Meanwhile, I watched everything. Every time she stepped outside to answer a phone call. Every late client meeting. Every time she smiled at her phone screen. And the whole time she kept bringing up the same topic again. The post-nuptial agreement. One night she slid a folder across the kitchen table. We should really sign this, she said casually. It just protects both of us if anything ever happens. I opened the document slowly. Daniel had warned me something like this might happen. The agreement was simple. Too simple. If we divorced, she kept the house. She kept the investment accounts. She kept the majority of our shared savings. And I kept my personal business liabilities. In other words, she walked away rich. And I walked away with debt. I looked up at her. She smiled like this was completely reasonable. For a moment, I wondered how long she had been planning this. But instead of arguing, I just nodded slowly. And said the words she clearly wanted to hear. Yeah. Maybe you're right. Because by that point, the paperwork Daniel had filed was already moving through the court system. Lauren thought she was about to win. What she didn't know was that every lie she told, and every dollar she tried to hide, was about to become evidence. 2 weeks after Lauren handed me that postnuptial agreement, she started acting different. Not nervous. Not worried. Confident. Looking back now, I think she believed she had already won. She kept asking if I had looked over the papers. Every couple of days she would bring it up casually, like it wasn't a big deal. Did you get a chance to read that agreement? Let me know if you want to sign it this weekend. We should probably notarize it soon, just to get it done. Each time I told her the same thing. Yeah, I'll look at it. Inside, it took everything I had not to laugh. Because while she thought she was setting the trap, the court had already started building one around her. Daniel had warned me the most important thing was patience. Let her keep talking, he told me. People planning something dishonest usually expose themselves if you give them enough time. He was right. One night, while we were eating dinner, Lauren casually mentioned something that made my stomach tighten. I might move some money around this week, she said. Just for a property investment. I kept my face completely neutral. How much? Nothing major. Maybe another 40 or 50. 40 or 50,000. Like it was pocket change. But what she didn't know was that the court had already placed a temporary financial restraint on several of our shared accounts. The bank had instructions to flag unusual transfers. So I simply nodded. Okay. 2 days later, it happened. I was at work when my phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. Attempted transfer, $45,000. Declined. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed everything. She wasn't just cheating. She was actively trying to drain our accounts before leaving. That afternoon I called Daniel. He sounded almost satisfied when I told him. Good, he said calmly. That's exactly what we needed. He explained that the failed transfer would be logged in the bank's records. Which meant if the case went to court, we could show that she had attempted to move a large sum after the legal freeze had been requested. Judges hated that. Really hated that. Then he told me something else. Lauren had already been served the divorce notice. She just hadn't received it yet. The paperwork was scheduled to arrive at our house the following morning. Which meant the quiet phase of this whole thing was about to end. And part of me couldn't wait. The next day I worked from home. Around 11 in the morning, the doorbell rang. Lauren answered it. I heard the conversation from the hallway. Lauren Mitchell, the man asked. Yes. You've been served. There was a long silence. Then the sound of paper unfolding. I stayed in the kitchen while she read it. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Then suddenly. What the hell is this? She stormed into the kitchen holding the documents, her face completely pale. Why am I being served divorce papers? I looked up from my coffee like I had just been interrupted from something unimportant. Because I filed for divorce. Her eyes widened. What are you talking about? And that was the moment I had imagined 100 times. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and opened the video. The hotel lobby. Her laughing. His hand on her back. And finally, the kiss. I set the phone on the table and slid it toward her. Lauren watched it. Her expression changed second by second. Shock. Confusion. Then fear. You were supposed to be in Miami, I said quietly. She didn't speak. For once, Lauren had absolutely nothing to say. But the thing that finally broke her composure wasn't the video. It was the next sentence. I also know about the $80,000 you moved into the account you share with him. Her head snapped up instantly. And in that moment, I could actually see the exact second she realized something had gone very, very wrong. Because cheating might have been forgivable in court. But hiding marital money with your affair partner? That was the kind of mistake judges remembered. And our court date was coming fast. Lauren just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the phone like it might somehow erase what she had just seen. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked completely lost. Then the excuses started. It's not what you think. He's just a business partner. You're overreacting. I didn't interrupt her. I just leaned back in my chair and watched. Because at that point, none of it mattered anymore. Every word she said sounded desperate, like someone trying to tape together a glass that had already shattered. When she finally stopped talking, the room went quiet. Save it for your lawyer, I said calmly. That sentence hit her harder than the video. Her face changed instantly. You're serious about this? Yes. What about the house? She asked quickly. What about it? That's my investment. I've been managing the real estate deals. I couldn't help it. I actually laughed. You mean the deals you funded with money you secretly transferred into an account with the guy you're sleeping with? She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. The next few weeks were exactly what Daniel predicted. Her lawyer tried to argue that the transfers were business-related. They tried to say the account wasn't hidden. They even tried to claim the money technically belonged to her. But there were two problems with that story. First, every transfer came directly from our joint marital account. Second, the account holder listed next to her name was the man from the hotel. When the judge reviewed the bank records and the attempted $45,000 transfer that was blocked after the legal freeze, the tone in the courtroom changed fast. Judges see cheating all the time. But financial deception during a marriage, and especially during the start of a divorce, is something they take very seriously. By the time the final hearing arrived, Lauren barely looked at me anymore. The woman who once walked into every room like she controlled it now sat quietly beside her lawyer, staring down at the table. Then the judge read the decision. Because of the hidden transfers and attempted movement of funds, the court ruled that the money she had moved would be credited entirely back to the marital assets. Which meant it would be split. The house was ordered to be sold, and the profit divided. The investment account she created with her affair partner was frozen pending further financial review. And because the court determined she had attempted to conceal marital funds, she was ordered to pay a significant portion of the legal fees. When we walked out of that courtroom, Lauren looked like someone had taken the ground out from under her. She thought she was going to leave with everything. Instead, she left with half of what she tried to steal. And a pile of legal bills. A few months later, I heard through a mutual friend that her business partner had disappeared once the investigation into the account started. Funny how that works. As for me, I sold the house, moved to a new place, and started rebuilding my life. Losing a marriage hurts. But losing someone who was secretly planning to destroy you? That's not a loss. That's an escape. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I post new Reddit stories about cheating, relationships, and crazy life situations every day. And if you have a story like this, feel free to share it in the comments.